You're now listening to The Festival of Football, presented by Billy Harvey and Henry Barrett.
Did you see that the Hall of Fame's been announced, the two first inductees?
Yeah, I know. It kind of gave me like a WWE vibe. Like, they're going to start wheeling out these old legends from like the early 2000s and being like, oh, here's Thierry Henry, way. Like,
Yeah.
it's a strange concept, isn't it, the Hall of Fame? Because,
Well,
I mean,
it's
how far.
American, isn't it?
Yeah, and the Americans love it, don't they? They've got like the Basketball Hall of Fame and they've got the NFL Hall of Fame and probably an ice hockey one too. And then you've got WWE Hall of Fame as well. It's like, I get it. It's a great commercial product, isn't it? Because you roll back the years, you taking a look at the nominees that are in there: Alan Shearer, Thierry Henry, you've got John Terry, Frank Lampard. Like, there's so many great players in there, icons, like football icons that they are, and they all probably deserve to go in there. But then I think, looking back at the Premier League, you've also got to put in people that are probably not as well known, but also had a massive effect on the Premier League. Someone like Richard
Well,
Dunn at Man City.
yeah. Do you know what? I was literally thinking to myself, because obviously they announced his first two, Thierry Henry and Alan Shearer.
Fair enough.
And when I thought about it, I thought, well, who's got the most Premier League appearances? And I swear, isn't it Gareth Barry?
Yeah, Gareth Barry, yeah.
So for me, he's been in the Premier League a long time. He played at Man City. He won the league with Man City, didn't he? So, I mean, he's got to be a shout to be in there.
Yeah, I mean, he has to be in there because he's a record holder, isn't he? Same as like Ryan Giggs, but he'll get in anyway because of the career that he had, unless this like court case turns out to be something.
This was what I was literally just about to mention Ryan Giggs, because I think Ryan Giggs would have been one of the first two people that was announced if it weren't for this court thing going on. Because you hardly have Ryan Giggs standing there holding a Hall of Fame trophy when he's in court for beating up his missus and a sister. So, yeah. But I mean, do you agree with Alan Shearer and Thierry Henry?
Yeah, of course. They're legends. Like, Alan Shearer is the top goal scorer in the Premier League. Thierry Henry defined an era. I know he played for Arsenal, so it's hard to say, but looking back at it objectively, you've got to say that Henry and Shearer are probably two of the best strikers that ever play in the Premier League ever, period.
I mean, controversial. A lot of people probably shouting names at you right now. And, Aguero,
Yeah, I mean, you've got
Suarez, Torres.
Yeah, but they didn't have the same effects. Like Alan Shearer in the 90s when he was at Blackburn, he had the Shearer, the SAS up front, Shearer and Sutton. They smashed it, and then he went to Newcastle, played in some good teams, played in some very bad Newcastle teams, and still was consistent. And then you look at someone like Henry, who was at Arsenal and was part of that invincible side, and you just knew when Thierry Henry was in form, you didn't have a chance. Like if he was on his game that day, you were done. Like if he had a chance, he side puts it in, nice little cushion finish, and he's off celebrating. Like you just knew it was inevitable.
Of course, yeah. I mean, do I think Henry should have been in the first two? For me, Shearer definitely, because he scored the most goals. So, and football is about goal scoring. No matter how, if you're a good defender, you're a good midfielder, a striker's always going to go before you because football's about goals. So Shearer had to be in there as one of the top two for me because he's got the record, so he has to be in there. But when I sit and think about it, I'm like, Henry, like, yeah, he did great, he was amazing. But is there anyone else that could go in there before him? Like you start thinking about people like Roy Keane. How many titles did he win?
Yeah, and
if it weren't for him dragging Man United to these trophies,
Yeah, I mean, inspirational captain for Man United. But then you look at players like Wayne Rooney as well. He could have been equally in the second.
But Rooney couldn't be in it because he didn't qualify because he was still playing. The cut-off point you couldn't play last year or something like that, and he was still playing for Derby technically, so he wasn't allowed to be nominated.
Yeah, I think these technicalities, like, they're nonsense, aren't they? Because you think, like, if you're going to do like a Premier League Hall of Fame, I get it, like they have to be retired at certain times, how Hall of Fames work, but he probably, like, he's Manchester United's all-time top goal scorer. I mean, he could arguably been in that first two. But
definitely. If Rooney qualified, he probably would have took Henry's spot for me.
Yeah, I mean, they both define. Yeah, No, it's true. They both defined their own era. Henry, 90s, early 2000s, and then after that, you had Rooney at United scoring iconic goals and becoming that sort of feared player as well. Because you knew if he was on form on his day, he could do the same thing that Henry could do to you. But yeah, I really like this Hall of Fame idea. It just depends on how they go about it, and if they actually start.
It'll get political. It will.
Yeah, and I think they'll add in the players that everyone knows first. It'll be like the Lampards, the Gerrards, the John Terrys, Roy Keane, Patrick Vieira.
If they're going to do 2 a year, then I won't be surprised if Lampard and Gerrard go in together.
Yeah, and I mean, it'll probably be in 10 years' time.
But then, we've both just said Gerrard and Lampard. What about Scholes?
Yeah, I mean,
Scholes is better than both of them, right?
Technically, technically gifted player. Yeah, he was probably in the better teams as well. He was in the better teams out of those. But I mean, it was always that conundrum, wasn't it, with England? Like, where do you play Scholes? And really, he should have played as number 10, just behind the striker. But that formation didn't exist in that day, so you had Lampard or Gerrard, and sadly, Scholes had to play left midfield, which was a travesty.
No, that was for left midfield. Jesus, when you had someone like Joe Cole that could play there.
Yeah, and again, he's another player that could go in the Hall of Fame, because I think Joe Cole is probably the most underrated English player of all time. Technically,
I mean, there's only one name that comes to mind that I can think of more so, and that's Michael Carrick.
Yeah, Michael Carrick's underrated as well, but Joe Cole's just he was an English like Ronaldinho. He could do everything. He could do skills. He had technique. He could play. He could pass. He had strength. He had everything. He had his injury problems.
He left West Ham too early.
Yeah, and then he run into Jose Mourinho at Chelsea, and we all know what happens with Mourinho.
He takes really great players and makes them into defensive-minded, not good players. But no, going back to Henry and Shearer, I would agree, that Henry and Shearer definitely probably should have been the two that went in first. But Rooney, if he was able to do it, I think Rooney would have been a close third. So who, if you're going off the basis that they're going to put 2 in, who would be the next 2 for you? Is Rooney 1? Would you say Rooney's 1?
Yeah, I'd say Rooney would be 1, and then 1 of Roy Keane or Patrick Vieira, because I think they, as captains, they defined that Manchester United Arsenal rivalry for years.
Yeah. I'd go Keane personally, just because of how much he won. Because I think Arsenal, how many league titles did Arsenal win in that era? Was it 3?
3, yeah, 3.
See, Man United, how many did Man United win? So and Keane was there for most of them. So yeah, I'll go Keane over Vieira personally. But that's just me.
Yeah, but if you're going on titles won, you've got to put in Eric Jemba.
Eric Jemba, Jesus, you'll be bringing out Nani next.
Exactly. So, I mean, where'd you stop? I mean, yeah, you put in players like Jemba.
All I'm going to say is one thing, and I'm going to say it clear right now, and I don't care if it's controversial or not. Cristiano Ronaldo does not belong in the Premier League Hall of Fame until it gets to like maybe 30 people in, because he didn't do it that much in the Prem. He only become this mega star when he went to Real Madrid.
Yeah.
He started it at Man United, but he wasn't the Ronaldo that we all know until he was at Real Madrid. So if people want to hate me for that, they can, but you can't put Ronaldo in based on what he's done since he left Man United.
No, you have to go on what they've done.
In the Premier League, you have to do what they've done in the Prem. It's the Premier League Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. So for me, I just have to get that out there. Because when he was at Man United, he was still that little step-over kid that kept doing like 60,000 step-overs and then didn't do anything. So I'd say he has to go in a bit further down the line. Just had to throw that in there. But yeah, so let's get on to the